This week, two questions. One is from a gentleman called Adekunle Odetola. He said, and I'll just read out his question the way it was sent. I have met Peter Obi twice. I had a chat with him for about 10 minutes and wasn't convinced he's the Messiah Nigeria needs. He was continuously referring to me as a Yoruba man when I thought I was dealing with a fellow Nigerian. Have you met him? Do you find him highly cerebral and erudite? What were your findings before supporting him? Now, I have a couple of things I would like to point out quickly. No Messiah is coming to save Nigerians. If you're thinking in terms of a Messiah, then you obviously have a wrong perception of both the problems of Nigeria and the solution to the Nigerian problem. No Messiah is coming, no vote is going to be saving ourselves. It will take the collective to save Nigerians. So I do not think in terms of messiahs, and I do not believe that Peter Obi is a messiah. He is a good man. So to answer your question, I have met him. Not only met him, I spoke extensively with him in the lead up to my decision to support him. I met him as a member of Afenifere. I met with him as a member of the Southern and Middle Belt Leaders Forum. I met with him one-on-one. What I found important in taking my decision was his position as it related to, one, structuring of the Nigerian state, two, his views as to the need for the collective before Nigeria may be rescued. Now, if you're thinking in terms of a messiah, then you'll be looking at a single person waving a wand to save Nigeria or Nigerians from. He's certainly not a messiah, and I wasn't looking for one. I was simply looking for a good man with the right ideas who might be able to lead the revolution required to save Nigeria. So that was the basis of my support for Peter Obi. Now, as it relates to your question to you as a Yoruba man, I wasn't there, and I can't speak to why he might have done that. I know as a fact that it is almost impossible to speak to citizenship in Nigeria, but it is easier to deal with Nigerians as members of ethnic nationalities, because that is the basis of engagement. Nigerian state. Nigeria always reduces you to your ethnicity and then your religion in most cases. I don't know what might inform what you have described, and I cannot speak to it. Now, did I find him erudite and cerebral? I found the man quite cerebral, and I believe that his heart is in the right place. Most Nigerian rulers, or ruiners as the case might be, he's not even being erudite. If you're talking about being cerebral, I doubt there is anyone more cerebral than Yemi Osinbajo, but his heart is not in the right place. When in my own estimation to Peter Obi, he said all the right words, yes, but more importantly, he had or has a record in public of empathy with the poor, of above normal level of probity and openness in governance. These were of my support for Peter Obi. The second question, I hope I have answered you. The second question comes from a gentleman called Kingsley Ochonogo. He says, no matter how strong the cabal is, power belongs to the people. If Obidient could do it in 2023, we can do better in 2027. In my movement late in the build-up to the 2023 election, therefore, I am asking, I'm quoting him, what should the Obidient be doing right now? What should we do to come back stronger in 2027? Let's be clear about this. You're correct. The Obidient movement started pretty late. I doubt we had up to 8 months to galvanize the level of support that we galvanized and to win the election as we did, regardless of the shenanigans of INEC and the judiciary, I stand by my assertion. The margin is unknown to us because to a very large extent, INEC did a fantastic job of somebody is telling me that it's breaking a little. I hope before we go in, we're able to cure that. What should the Obidient be doing right now? We should be organizing. You can't leave this for 2027. There are myriads of issues that have to be dealt with before any election might hold in our current circumstances. INEC has to become more accountable. You have to have amendments to the Electoral Act that demands that there must be polling level transmission of results real time. There must also be a reordering of the electoral calendar. It is possible to have all the elections in one day, and that is what should be happening. So there are multiple things that have to be done. It's not just about election. There has to be political engagement with the system to make sure that what we desire, we work towards it. You cannot wait until 2027 to do anything. There must be a wholesale drive to recruit new blood into the political process. If you have only Peter Obi on the ticket, and then you have all kinds of crooked people hanging on to his coattail in whatever party it might be, whether that be the Labour Party that is apparently under attack currently, or whether that be another political platform, the one thing that must happen, and quickly too, is that there must be recruitment into the process by persons who have already detached themselves from the process so that the system does not get its way again in 2027, assuming there will be an election in 2027. It's already 10 o'clock now. I wish I could take more questions, but I actually have only two, but I don't believe I've spent sufficient time answering the second question. But the most important thing about that second question is Obidient movement needs to get organized from local government, ward level, to state level, to national level. There is a critical need for the movement to become better organized so that we are not waiting until the last minute to be running around to coalesce behind the person of Peter Obi. The movement is not about a person, it's about ideas. These ideas have to be clearly articulated so that it percolates all the way down. You can kill men, but you can't kill ideas. You can rig out persons, but you can't rig out ideas. So these ideas must be properly structured, properly articulated, so that it begins to populate the space. Thank you very much. Good morning once again. It's 10 o'clock now, and I believe we should start the day's business. And what do I want to talk about today? It's about the flight of shame. Yep, the flight of shame. Nigeria and the flight of shame. What do I mean? There is a proverb out with a rider, Àìlójútì, olórí àrùn. Let me repeat that. Àìlójútì, olórí àrùn. Shamelessness is the father of all ailments. If a man is devoid of shame, he is capable of everything and anything. When you now have shame vacating an entire country, you have major problems in that country. As I have observed the Nigerian condition, and as I have continued to interrogate our circumstances, first I found that corruption isn't our real problem, it is impunity. But I then found that undergirding our impunity is a complete absence of shame. We have become so shameless as a collective, individuals, every collective in Nigeria, from the church group to the mosque group to unions, to neighborhood unions, to town unions, the level of shamelessness that has come to define and characterize our dealings is actually quite scary. Look around Nigeria. Let us look around. You find that corruption has been normalized in our society. And when I speak of corruption, I'm not just speaking to the corruption of the ruiners. A mechanic will tell you that one thing is wrong with your car, but it is something completely different that he's fixing. He extorts from you. The teacher would sell handout, would demand sexual gratification before passing a student. And he will feel no sense of remorse because all the other lecturers have their own thing going. My wife runs a supermarket. There was a day, 4 staff were caught stealing. A culture of stealing had been normalized within that small business. There is no member who feels that what the other is doing is wrong because they are doing their own thing that are just as wrong as the ones being done by the other. If you're not stealing money from the business, but you're stealing goods, you're just as much of a thief as the person stealing the money. If you are not stealing money or stealing goods, but you are eating the products without paying for it, you are just as culpable as those who are taking both products and money. So a culture of stealing is engendered in the space because everybody is doing one thing or the other that they are not meant to do. You then develop a culture predicated on the normalization of abnormality. So yes, we can speak about the stealings of Jagaban, we can speak to the stealings of his chief of staff, we can point at our National Assembly, Akpabio and them, but what about us as individuals, as a collective? Since we find themselves ruled by demons, it is the collective demonization of individuals that has led to the enthronement of demons in public office. Good people are rarely ever ruled by bad men and women. It is bad people who find excuses for evil that are ruled or ruined by bad people. So it is all well and good to point to the evil men and women ruling our country, but we also have a duty to examine ourselves as a collective. How did we get here? How did we get to the point where the government show of shamelessness? Arrests, first you started with, Aboki FX is the reason why Naira was getting dropped his daily rate. And then you turned around and say, it's the Binance people. Before the Binance, it was all the Aboki with their borrow the change. You started chasing them around, arresting them. EFCC found no other job to do again. Even the DSS got in on the act, and then you went around harassing these people. And when that didn't work, you jumped on Binance. You invited them into the country, and then you went ahead to arrest some of them, 2 of them actually. In the custody of the National Security Agency, like whatever they call the NSA, you arrested these people, and one of them escaped, quote and unquote. I was invited to the EFCC headquarters matter I handled years back, and I was there for the first time in my life. This was about a month or so ago, and I assure you, nobody can leave that premises without the sanction of the EFCC. And I'm talking about the Economic and Financial Crime Commission. How much more the National Security Agency? It had men in his custody. Foreigners. And this foreigner, one of them, at least that's the story they want us to believe. One of them escaped the custody of the NSA. He came out of that place, not a black man or a white man. He wasn't the me that might have been able to blend in with the crowd. He would have stuck out like a sore thumb. Out of that custody, from there, got to the airport with all the checkpoints on the way. Not only got to the checkpoint, he went through the checkpoint, he actually entered a private jet. He went through immigration, he entered a private jet and left Nigeria. And the utter lack of shame made it possible for sane human beings to come and tell Nigerians that this man escaped from Nigeria. What level of shamelessness? And then up until this moment, no eggs have rolled. It tells you that there is a complete absence of shame in that space. If I were to be a Megad and I had custody of 2 rams inside the compound and one of the rams escaped, I'll feel myself too shame, open my mouth to tell my Oga what has happened to the ram. But the National Security Advisor had no shame telling Nigerians that the ram, in this case, a man that was arrested with great fanfare, has escaped Nigeria. This is merely symptomatic of the extent of shamelessness about the criminalities of those who are ruling us or ruling. It is impossible for something like that to have happened without extensive collaboration and complicity at the highest echelon of that security organization, if not the government itself. But we are made to believe that he simply walked out, walked through our airport, entered the private jet, and left Nigeria. Are we so stupid, or is it that we are just so completely devoid of shame? What about judicial corruption? The height of shame that will lead some men and women to make some of the pronouncements that have come out of our judiciary. Because if you had enough presence of mind and the capacity for self-reflection, you should even be ashamed to say some of the things that are said. Is it our churches? Let me bring something to your attention. Fisayo Shoyombo spent time diligently investigating the shenanigans in the Nigerian customs services. And he put it out there. And for weeks, he was releasing facts on a daily basis. This gentleman was releasing facts that he had garnered at great danger to his person. And what happened? The Nigerian police has not called IBTC or BD or whatever Dende. He hasn't called any of the custom persons mentioned. But what has he done? He needed to demand that the publishing house for which Fisayo works should come. It summoned them. And having not been satisfied with that, it has now summoned Fisayo himself to appear before it. Some wise guy, I believe it was Aiden, I can't remember if that's his name now, the guy that was involved with the WikiLeaks. He says, when the truth teller is the one being chased around, then you should know that criminals are the ones running your government. The Nigerian state is essentially a criminal enterprise being run by criminal gangs. The police is no longer interested in the persons who have been exposed as criminals, but it is the person exposing the criminal that is not the one being chased around. Pada, only oloko. When you have the grass cutter, the farmer around, you should know that there are serious problems inside that your farm. The Nigerian state would rather protect the criminal and chase after the victim. That is where we have found ourselves today.